afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Perdue, and I am a nerd, and you are lucky enough to be here on the second Monday of the month for the Worldox Virtual User Group meeting from Attorney Computer Systems. And today we are talking about, what are we talking about? Printing from Worldox. We didn't even know we could do this. We found it somewhere, and we're very excited about it. Mary Jo is going to talk to you about that. And I am going to talk to you about some advanced Boolean search capabilities that you may or may not have known about. And if you haven't, then these will certainly enhance your ability to zero in on the right bit of data. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. This screen right, oops, this went away. That screen right there is the Gotowebinar control panel. You may still be seeing something like this on your screen. If you are, then it means that you're probably a newbie and have not learned, because I always tell you to do this, to press this button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right. Pressing that button will cause this screen to slide off to the right and become invisible. And that is, of course, something that you're going to want to do if it is covering up my screen, because we're going to talk about such exciting things that you're going to want to be able to see every inch of my screen. If you have pressed this button to get this to slide out of the way, then this will turn into a button that looks more like an arrow pointing to the left. And the reason for that is because then clicking it again will cause this to come back into focus. Why would you want this to come back into focus? Wait for it. It's because you're shy and you have a question. If you want to ask a question, just bring this back into focus, type your question here. Remember to hit the send button. If you're not seeing this, it's because questions is minimized, so just be sure to, if you're not seeing this box, just click this here, and that will show you this box. Remember to hit send, because it is not until you hit send that Leanne, our humble yet enigmatic moderator, will notice that you have a question, and will interrupt Mary Jo or myself at the opportune time, and will ask your question on your behalf. Now, if you've typed a question, and we start to answer it, but either you have follow-up questions based on our answer, or worse yet, we start to go down the wrong path and answer the wrong question because we've misunderstood what you're asking, just keep typing here. You will be in an ongoing conversation with Leanne as long as you keep remembering to hit send, and Leanne will continue to convey your thoughts until we have fully answered your question. Now, if you're not feeling shy, you can also press this button here that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upward in front of it, which means raise your hand. And Leanne, our humble yet enigmatic moderator, will recognize that you have a question, but this time instead of reading your question, she will unmute your microphone. That unmuted microphone will stay that way. It'll remain unmuted until we're done answering your question. So once again, if you have follow-up questions or if we're not going down the right path, just keep talking to us. Keep asking your question. Make sure you get the answer that you want or that you get your question fully answered. So without any further ado, I'm going to hit the magic buttons. Where are those magic buttons? There's one of them, and there's the other one. And we are going to get into Worldox and let Mary Jo show you everything there is to know about printing from Worldox.
So as Paul said, this was something that we really didn't realize, I guess, that would be something useful that I guess we could do. But it is. I guess in the past, whenever I'd wanted to print a document, would open it and print it. And there is a way in Worldox that you can just print right from the screen. You can choose your document, and I'm just going to choose two of them here. I've got an Excel, and I've got a Word document. You can also do email messages if you want. Whatever list of documents here that you choose, you can come up to your file. You can just right-click and go to Print File. There it is. I'm just having a hard time seeing today. I guess I need my glasses on. Here's Print File, and if I do that, it will send that right out to the printer. It'll give me a confirmation box, and I can continue, and that will go ahead and print those 2 documents or 4 documents or 6 documents or whatever it is that I've selected here. It will send out to the printer and print them. I'm sure there's some max that it's going to get to at some point, but I think we tried 10 successfully and we're able to print those out. So we know at least 10 documents will print. So all you're doing is, again, just selecting the documents that you want to print, right-clicking, clicking on Print File, and that opens up the confirmation box, and you can hit continue, and that will go ahead and send that out to your printer and print those right from here. Saves you that step of opening it up and having to then print directly from that document. One other thing that is helpful, you can actually print this list that's out here. So if I were on a screen that were showing all of the exhibits for a case, and I just wanted to print that list of documents that had exhibits on it, or maybe you had all of the pleadings or the court filings or whatever that was, whatever list I'm on, and I want to print that list of documents. If I'm on the list and I just highlight what I want to print, or I just want to print the whole list, underneath this list tab, there is a print. And if I click on that, that again gives me the confirmation box, and I can continue, and it will print this in a list form. Now, it may warn you that there's too many columns across. When that happens, in fact, I think I'll just say OK. I don't know if it's going to. So if I'm just saying print, it may pop up. And of course, that one didn't. But when Paul and I were in here earlier, it popped up a box telling us that the columns were too many. So we switched it to landscape view, and it also gave you an option to reduce your font so that you could print this out and get everything on one screen. So pay attention to that. It was just a little message box that popped up, and it gave us some choices to make it fit to the screen so that we could get everything together.
I'd have to say I think that was it's one of the better ways I've seen of handling that, because instead of just saying, hey, this won't fit, it said, hey, this won't fit. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to turn the paper sideways? Do you want me to make it a smaller font? Or do you want to go back to the list and change? And I think it warrants pointing out that it's basically going to print whatever columns are in here. So you can also go back and take a column out or rearrange things if that's a better way for it to fit on the page for you.
So that works out really well. Two different ways that you can print right from the list.
Oh, and look, Mary Jo, I have a list here of these 3
Yeah,
documents.
I actually printed that list. So if you highlight on the list, it's only going to print the ones you've highlighted. But if you leave the list open and you don't highlight anything, it'll just, I believe it prints the whole list. So, or you can do a Control-A. I think we're in our favorite files, so I'm not going to do a Control-A. It's probably going to be like, 277 files. Here's what we have on this screen. But you can see down here in the corner how many you have on the list, so you can double check and make sure you've got them all, and then print it out. So.
And that's a perfect segue into what I'm going to talk about, because, well, what if you didn't want to print 277 files? You just want to print a list of the files that are emails that were sent by Dan Weary. How would you find those? Because obviously you can't even just select them. They're not on this screen. How would I find that? Well, you search. Everybody knows this. You hit the binoculars and you put in whatever you want to search for. And you can search in a certain profile group, or you can search across multiple profile groups. If you hit this button, you can select a specific profile group or set of specific profile groups. And as everybody knows, you can put in name or initials of the owner, or certain date ranges or text in the file. And let's pull up the client profiles profile group. And maybe you want all the documents that were, emails that were created by Paul Purdue. And you do have a little bit of a Boolean logic. That's the word for today. I'm talking about advanced Boolean search techniques. And that's what this and that you see here is kind of a Boolean operator. We want email and Paul Purdue as the author. But you can also change it and say, oh, no, we want email as the document type or Paul Purdue. Okay? But this isn't advanced Boolean search techniques. This is something that you've probably seen before and you've played with. And it's certainly rather limited because it just gives you certain options, but not exactly what you may want to find something. So if I were going to look for Daniel Weary, but I'm not sure if he signed his name as Daniel Weary or Daniel S. Weary, or, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to appear, I might want to search for the text in the file contains, and I'm going to go ahead and clear these two out. Let me do that first. There we go. I might search for text in file equals Daniel Weary, but And we're picking on Dan, who used to work here, simply because he doesn't have a lot of documents in here. And when we searched for me, we found 10,000. And the problem with this is that we don't know what might be in between the word Daniel and the word weary. So if instead we simply separate this with an operator, and it does not have to be capitalized, I just do that because I'm a little, I don't know, particular, and that's the way I learned to do it long ago when Boolean was the only way to search for things. And so now I'm searching for the word Daniel and the word weary somewhere within the text. And so if I go ahead and search, I will get, I think, well, just one of three because I'm limited to client files. I'm going to actually go back and do that search again because I know that I'm going to get a certain result that I want to use to show you something else. And I'm going to this time search across all files, all profile groups, I'm sorry. And I think what I'm going to get is 21. Let's find out. Thank you. I have Mary Jo here to keep me on the right track. And one of the many, many purposes that she serves in these virtual user group meetings. She's also the straight man, in case you were wondering. So now we're searching. But Leanne thought that was funny. Now we're searching, and yes, we find actually 20. Okay. Now that's good, but I'm not certain I found, and I don't know why I didn't mean to do that. I'm not certain I found exactly what I was looking for. Let's see why. You know, sometimes when Dan signs his emails, he would simply put Dan weary. Well, how would I do that and still get the Daniels? Anybody? Like this. This is what's called a wildcard in Boolean search logic. The wildcard means we want words that start with DAN and we don't care what's after it in the same word. So this will find Danny, Daniel, and Dan. And now when we search, we get 21. And so that means I found an extra email where Dan signed his name as Dan Weary, or a document where he was listed as Dan Weary instead of Daniel Weary. And so that's an important concept too. Now, let's take this a little bit further, because it's those Boolean connectors and our ability to put them together and to really form some complex search terms and search phrases that really is the power behind the advanced Boolean search logic. So what if I wanted to find any email that or any document that references either Dan Weary or my wife, Barb Perdue? And gosh, now that I say that out loud, that sounds a little, we're going to ignore any of the implications of searching for emails between Dan Weary and Barb Perdue. And we're simply going to put in that we are looking for Dan Weary or Barbara Perdue. Now, there's something wrong here. There's a lot wrong. First off, my wife hates being called Barbara. And so just like we were able to take Daniel and turn it into Dan and anything that starts with Dan, we're going to do the same thing with Barb and an asterisk because we want to search for Barbara or Barb or Barbie, which she hates even more than Barbara. Now, there's still something wrong here because just like, what is it, 6th grade math, algebra, there's an order to things. And we don't want the natural order to preside. We want to say that we either want this, whoops, I guess I'm going to put my parentheses in to begin with. I can't really block it quite the way I want it to. Either we want, well, I guess I can't watch this. Yeah, I'm not doing very good, am I? There we go. We either want that or we want, oh, and I left something out. Nobody pointed this out. There we go. We either want Dan and Weary, or we want Barb and Perdue. So how do we do that? Well, I kind of gave myself away when I couldn't get it to block right. We use parentheses. Now watch, let me put them in, and hopefully after I've put them in, it will make more sense than just trying to visualize how I'm going to do it and try and figure out what's going on. what we're doing here is we're saying we want either, get rid of those things, this or that. And this happens to be this and that, and this happens to be this and that. And so as you can see, what we've done is we've taken parentheses and used them to group two distinct sets of Boolean connected words together with an or between them. So what we're saying is we want any document that contains Dan something and Weary, or any document that contains Barb something and Purdue. Without these parentheses there, this search term is going to take a whole different approach, because it's going to say this and this, or that and that. But with the parentheses, it's very clear that we want Dan Weary or Barb Purdue. And so here we go. And now we have 334 documents. So there were an additional 300 and some documents that also have my wife's name in them. And that is advanced Boolean logic. I will tell you that the two most prevalently used connectors are and or. And I will tell you that the two wildcards are asterisk and question mark. So I'll go just a little bit further and say that if you wanted Dan and Danny, or Dan or Danny, but you didn't want Daniel, instead of using an asterisk, you could use two question marks, because Daniel does not fit within a 5-character limit. What you're saying with a question mark is the 4th character can be anything and the 5th character can be anything, but if it's longer, we don't want it. Okay? Very rare that you're going to use that. That's why I didn't really focus on that up front. This, for all intents and purposes, does the same thing. Only this will find Daniel, and this will not. Hopefully that makes sense. The only difference being the asterisk is any number of characters after what you've typed, and the question mark lets you specify how many characters you specifically want it to be matching against. And that, quite simply, is the advanced Boolean search logic that I wanted to show you. It makes a whole lot of difference based on being able to structure something like that once you start to think about it, on your ability to zero in on something the first try. If you don't know how to use the parentheses and you don't know how to use the and the or and the wildcards, you could make a lot of searches to try and find what you're looking for. Whereas if you think about it and think about how you're going to use the and the or together, how you're going to group things with the parentheses, and how you're going to use that wildcard, you can usually get to specifically what you are looking for on the first try. So with that in mind, let's talk about next month. Next month at the Worldox Virtual User Group Meeting, December, yes, it's already going to be December, we're going to talk about searching using categories. Categories are a way to kind of tag something, take a document and say this really belongs in the pleading folder. A lot of people think of categories as replacing folders as to how they can subdivide things in Worldox, how they can put them into certain folders, if you will. But the thing is, categories, you can assign multiple categories to a document. You could only put a document in one folder in the old Windows Explorer way of doing things. So we're going to talk about how to find those things based on what category they're in, because right now you have to know the tricks, and we're going to cover that. And we're also going to talk about how to archive an entire matter, how to take a matter, archive it, and get it out of your system, and even how to automatically then take those documents and have the indexer come through and clean them out and put them in another place, perhaps a place that's not as easily accessible, perhaps a place that's getting backed up to a CD every once in a while and then just purged from your main system, perhaps a place that's not part of your online backup, because online instant backups are usually an expensive proposition that's priced by the gigabyte, so when something's archived, you want to get it out of there. Whatever your purpose for archiving, we're going to show you how to do it and how to make it happen very quickly. And so while I'm talking about what we're doing next month, I'll take you to the place where you can always go to see what we're doing next month and also to see what we've done in prior months. If you go to our website, and scroll down, you will notice that on the left we have a whole bunch of video content. Of course, we have our water cooler virtual user group meetings. You are currently attending the Worldox virtual user group meeting, but we also have one for Practice Master and one for tabs. Just while we're here, I'll point out we also have a monthly webinar series called the Coffeepot Webinars. Mary Jo has her eBite video series where she takes a really neat thing that she or I have discovered and very quickly in a 3 or 4 minute video shows you how to do it. And we have the longer format Paul and Mary Jo show. It's more like a talk show, if you will, where we take a topic and really dig into it for about 10 or 15, sometimes 20 minutes. And then, of course, if you go here to one of the virtual user group meetings, you can also see when the next one is scheduled. Here's the one you're listening to right now. And if you scroll down, you can see recorded versions of every one that we've done so far, at least since we started recording them. So there's a lot of video content there. Be sure to poke around and explore and learn what you can, and let us know what questions we can answer. Everybody have a good rest of the day, rest of the month, and we will see you in December. Bye-bye.